Alright guys, such a again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Remarkable developments last night. It seems Jetpacks, at least in some form, could be back in Call of Duty in the very near future and actually spotted with code in this very game, Black Ops 6. Not going to be in this game's multiplayer it seems, but for next year's title, the big rumour is that not just wall running, but even potentially some sort of double jump feature is going to be back in the title. We're now seeing what this looks like in reality. The game is meant to be played on a very similar engine to what we currently have with Omni movement as well. This has serious implications for the game modes we might play next year, but also which teams and players are going to rather like it. The OpTic camp, I imagine already, especially with Shotzzy and Huke on the team, might need to have a think about what that means for the future of their team even after champs. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Just quickly, of course, because Challenger stuff is going down as well. There's the big storyline this weekend of the Stallions, how they're going to get on. Skyz, of course, is in there, and that's a big talking point with the rest of those guys. So, you know, Swooty and all of those teams. Now, I know that aBeZy was talking about it as well, trying to get as best as possible some Challenger stats from this upcoming weekend. It's not maybe going to be straightforward because they've got all the matches going on there in person, and Austin saying, look, if the FaZe guys can at least record the VOD, then he can track all of the stats, because it's going to be a big weekend. At the end of the day, the team that wins the Challenger side, they qualify for the Esports World Cup in Riyadh. That's a very big deal indeed. This was Shotzzy, by the way, actually playing with those Stallions guys. I thought it was a pretty cool moment, really, to see how much, you know, the pros have been helping out some of the Challenger team, just because, you know, the Stallions roster, some of the Challengers teams don't want to scrim them, but yet you've got the likes of Skyz, you've got the likes of Shotzzy stepping in there playing some scrimmage. And I know their scrims over the last couple of days haven't exactly been perfect, let's say, leading up to the major, but yeah, Shotzzy steps in for a map and it goes rather well. Him and Skyz teaming together again, of course, which is always pretty interesting after what's happened not that long ago, really, because look, it was obviously a question at the time what was happening. Did the Warlord make the call to drop Skyz? As we know, in reality now, it was, you know, Hex, we believe, who came out and made the decision to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what makes sense for the future of the franchise, and let's be real, as it stands, it looks like it's worked out rather well. But Sky is still taking advantage of the opportunity that he's got. I think that's the good thing about this, that, you know, most players will take advantage of the opportunities they get. Certainly with OpTic, I mean, you absolutely should. But in Sky's case, he played for OpTic not for very long at all. He's still on the organisation, still getting the OpTic gas and everything like that, and he's able to get enough subs that he, you know, he set a sub goal to play in this tournament, and now it's still working out rather well. So Shotzzy getting involved, I thought, was pretty good to see. But let's talk about Shotzzy and potentially his teammate Huke in the context of Black Ops 7. So, if you guys aren't familiar, this upcoming title, which is set to be launched, I don't know, October, November, like normal, is going to be some sort of Black Ops 2 sequel, we think. Black Ops 2.5, set somewhere between BO2 and BO3. That's the rumour anyway. And maybe alongside that, because obviously Black Ops 3 was a jetpack game, you might say, well, is it going to be halfway between boots on the ground and jetpacks, or just something like that? It's obviously been a talking point in COD for a very long time, the return to some sort of advanced movement style game. We had it in Advanced Warfare, was the first game to introduce it, with dashing, and didn't have wall running that game, but it had double jumping and dashing, exo jumping, exo pack, whatever they used to call it. And they had all the other things you could do, exo overclock, exo hover, exo like invisibility or whatever. Obviously that was banned for competitive play, but yeah, wild game, honestly. And then BO3, as you guys know, my favourite game ever, came out the following year with the wall running, and yeah, just spectacular. Now, even I will admit, the Black Ops 3, the movement on that game probably was capable of things that Treyarch didn't expect, and certainly even years after the game's life cycle, people are still playing it and discovering new things on the movement, which if we played it today, might make it, you know, I mean, an incredible thing to watch. Probably it would go too far in terms of being competitive. I mean, it used to annoy me, even as much as I love the game, that I'd be head glitching the bomb on something like Breach, and I'd have no idea where the guy would be coming from, because he could wall run low, he could wall run mid, he could wall run high. Like, there's just no way to prepare for that. And it's what it is. It's, you have to adapt the style of game, but, you know, ideally maybe you want to at least be able to prepare for a gunfight rather than having no idea which part of the wall run they're going to come from. So anyway, you know, it wasn't perfect from a competitive perspective, and Infinite Warfare had its issues as well, but Infinite Warfare was effectively Black Ops 3's jetpacks, but just toned down a smidge, right? They toned down the amount of jumping you could do. The wall running wasn't quite as smooth. You couldn't wall bounce quite in the same way. I think actually in many respects, as much as Black Ops 3 was like my favourite game ever, Infinite Warfare of the 3 games might have had the best, like most balanced movement mechanics. It was very similar to BO3, but it was just a little bit less powerful. So anyway, the fact of the matter is they went 1 year too far. For the casual community, they went 1 year too far. Maybe they went 3 years too far, right? If you talk to a lot of casual Call of Duty players, you know, especially around my age, a lot of them will tell you that it was around that era they got out of playing COD because they were like, what is this? They couldn't keep up. Which, yeah, for casuals, like for people that didn't grind the game like we did, then yeah, absolutely, I totally get it. But, you know, it was obviously true that if you were pretty good at those games, you would absolutely slam. And that's what made them so fun, as I'm sure many of you guys well remember. But to be fair, I mean, the Infinite Warfare trailer revealing the jetpacks had the most dislikes of any video game video ever, right? You guys remember that one? Because the community at large was so frustrated with the fact that jetpacks were still there, and they even admitted they went 1 year too far with it. That was back in 2016 Infinite Warfare came out. We're nearly a decade on from that now, and there have been many people wondering for years, okay, is it possible we go back to a world where jetpacks are potentially back in the game at some point? Or there's some advanced movement. We've seen developments in the movement over the last few years, and even Black Ops 4, you know, was pretty fast. They had the grapple hook and stuff, but it wasn't exactly what we had seen previously. And I think for some time we've been expecting something of a return to that. The rumor has it anyway that Black Ops 7, Black Ops 2.5, whatever you want to call it, coming out this upcoming year, was going to have something of this effect. Now, the rumor a while ago was that this was set to be something equating to parkour, right? So if you were running around, you could jump on a wall and then it would like allow you to bounce off it type thing, in addition to the Omni movement that we presently have in the game as it stands. However, as of yesterday, there have been a couple of very interesting things spotted here in Black Ops 6. So it seems like the code has been added to this game to maybe test it out and get it ready for next game. It's not, obviously, they're not going to come up with a patch that just allows you to wall run in Black Ops 6. But the point is that we can actually see it in action on this game, which is pretty remarkable if this is the feature that we're going to be seeing next year. So as you guys can see here, you know, it's possible to wall run just like you could in Black Ops 3. It's actually quite similar. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to bounce off the wall in quite the same way. I know that S and Dylan's trying it here, so, you know, maybe that's a possibility here. But you guys can see, like, this is clearly wall running around the map, which is pretty remarkable. And there's more to it than even just that. There was this clip going around as well, which seems to allow, not only have you got the wall run, but there's also a potential double jump feature in the game as well. So now this is getting very tasty, of course, because as you guys can see here, I mean, this is, you know, equating to something like, I mean, yeah, this is basically BO3 Infinite Warfare, just not to the same extent where you've actually got the jetpack and you've got the booster. But it seems like you actually can double jump in midair. And, you know, here we are, of course, on the firing range. So what do we think of this, right? Where does it go next? I'm sure that some will be happy, some won't be so happy. I know that many of us kind of, you know, competitive fans or casual competitive fans, whatever you want to say, we're pretty happy about the prospect of this coming back because, you know, many of us have wanted something more on the advanced movement side for nigh on a decade to return, and now maybe it is. And the idea of Omni movement, so you can slide around and dive around and slide and dive backwards and all these other things and sideways, in addition to wall running and double jumping for next year's game, I mean, you know, it could be mega. It's not going to be quite the same as the jetpack era, but it's potentially not going to be far off, depending on how this looks. But also, you've got to wonder what the feedback to this would potentially be, right? We know how it's been in recent games when we've had, like, you know, the lads and dads, that's how they described them, right? Because as I said at the start of the video, when we started talking about jetpacks, a lot of the community was not happy with jetpacks. I don't think they're going to come back in the same form, but, you know, they may come back in. I think they were even talking, Activision were talking back at the time when it didn't work out with Infinite Warfare and people were frustrated about it. They were like, look, we went 1 year too long on jetpacks. They kind of implied, I think, that at some point they'll look to bring them back, but not yet when the time is right. It's kind of like Titanfall-esque stuff we're talking about here as well. I know that many people are going to be happy about it if this actually does become true. I think the pros will be very excited about this because if you ask the pros whether they prefer jetpacks or boots, 85% of them will tell you Jetpacks they'd want to return. So, you know, but the funny thing is that after Black Ops 7, assuming that we do get movement like this, it's then back to an Infinite Warfare game, or an Infinity Ward game, sorry, that is likely going to be something like Modern Warfare 4, with potentially none of this movement in it at all. Now, the other conclusion that JP draws, really, is that, well, is it time for uplink? Because, not going to lie, even without the double jumping, with just a wall run, uplink is then possible, right? Because, you know, people used to talk about, well, if you want to play uplink again, so uplink's the game mode, it's, you know, if you throw the ball into the portal, you get 1 point, if you jump in, you get 2. And it was an amazing game mode during the Jetpack era, and many would love it to return as the third mode in COD. It's not really been possible recently because no jetpacks. I mean, they tried it in Boots on the Ground in World War II, a game called Gridiron. You'd throw it into the portal or run it into the grounds, but it didn't quite hit the same. People have been saying, oh, you put a trampoline on the map and then you can jump into the portal and all this on Boots on the Grounds. But now you could just have a wall there where you know, you have to wall run and then jump off the wall run, and then that was enough to maybe get you the height you needed. So, but if you've got a double jump as well, if you can hit the double jump off a wall, then yeah, all of a sudden there's your uplink potentially back in the game. So JP might be pretty excited about that. I'm sure the OpTic team are potentially going to be pretty excited about this as well, because as we know, that OpTic team, at least on paper, with Shotzzy and Huke on the roster. I mean, look, Shotzzy, absolutely, there should be no doubts that Shotzzy should be having a good time here in this hypothetical Black Ops 7, but it maybe raises some questions of what OpTic should do for the rest of their team, because the big question has been, if Shotzzy and Dashy are like the duo that isn't going to be going anywhere, which is still likely true, I think Shotzzy is basically undroppable, certainly very much borderline undroppable. Dashy, I wouldn't call him undroppable because we've seen it before, but you know, it's unlikely that they would be looking to move on from him. Of course, Mercules, you've got to think, is not going anywhere. OpTic should get him tied down. So the big question has been, well, you know, would Shotzzy think about getting somebody else in for Huke? Is there anyone else out there, like a JoeDeceives or a CleanX? Or, you know, I'm not really sure I like any of those ideas necessarily. I do have my concerns about the Shotzzy-Huke SMG duo, for sure, even though Huke's been very, very good this season, and I think is actually pretty underrated in terms of what he's done this year for the Green Wall. But still, it's been a talking point. The reality is, though, that if you've got a jetpack movement game, getting rid of Huke and Shotzzy, like, would probably be a rather bad idea. So, you know, the idea of those two teaming together, it definitely makes OpTic's roster decisions a little interesting, because let's say they struggle at Champs, they struggle at the World Cup, but yet they've got this game coming out, which is, you know, heavily movement-based. Shotzzy, I'm sure, is not very happy that he's dropped Huke a million times before. I'm sure he doesn't really want to do it again. So I think those are some questions, really, for the team to answer as they go forward, if this indeed does become reality over the coming weeks. So very much enjoy your thoughts and comments below. Some interesting stats here to look at, some of the best teams in terms of record of all time. There was also these numbers that Turtle pointed out to me yesterday, thought were pretty remarkable. So this just goes to show a few things. Certainly Minnesota Rocker. We know they've been choking hard this year, as we know, and the numbers are actually pretty absurd. So Rocker's average points in a hardpoint loss are 205, which is more than anybody else. Even when Thieves lose a hardpoint, they only average 195 points in losses. Their average margin for victory, though, is 90 because they often win. Whereas Rocker, it's actually crazy. If you look at the numbers in terms of average points per hardpoint map, Rocker have the 4th highest of the entire league, yet they only win about 35% of their hardpoints because they just throw them all away. And this is another indication, basically, of exactly that. This is also pretty interesting of, I don't want to say clutch factor exactly, because sometimes, you know, the sample sizes here can be relatively small and you never really know how the rotation is going. But within reason, if the game is between 250 and 240, Gorillas have lost 5 of them, they've only won 1. Ultra have lost a handful, and Rocker are down there as well, which shouldn't really surprise you, but they've won 3 close hardpoints. They've lost 6 based on the numbers. So very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
I'm walking back.
Heard. We play. They're all gonna be P1, all P1, cat.
No.
He did one shot, cat. He jumped out pool.
Wow, one shot front.
There's 2 one shot, I promise. No one shot.
Wait, he's weak in hill, Siski.
How the fuck did you know that?
Oh, I got a dead slide.
I spawned back.
We just need 2,
Get the time. I have all your mid, boys.
Yeah, let's cut him off. Let's rotate.
Okay, there's 2 cats. They got.
You have to jump down, buddy.
I'm going.
He took a route. He went deep.
He went deep. He just gave up.
Bots.
Good boys. Wow.
Let's go. You guys were fine. Good job, guys.
I guess you're
What?
suit.
What happened?
Baby.
You suing?